2001 saw another airshow season in full swing, with aircraft from around the world flying at displays throughout the UK. Although there were fewer shows this year, partly due to the foot and mouth outbreak, crowds at most of the major displays were bigger than ever. However, 2001 will be remembered for the pilots and aircraft that were lost in the early part of the season. This program is dedicated to the memory of those pilots and crew who tragically lost their lives in flying accidents this year. The first major event our crews filmed was at the open day and fly-in at Kemble. This historic airfield had just been saved from redevelopment, and Delta Jets had a big year ahead of them. Their first show was a relaxed event, with jets from around the country flying in and taking part. First to display was Hawker Hunter WV-318, the flagship of Delta Jet's fleet, flown by Andy Cuban. We go in cockpit with Andy, with the first of many mini-cam shots featured in this program. – 2001 is the 50th anniversary of the first flight of the Hunter, and many events were planned across the season in celebration. This is a T-7B, which operated with 208 Squadron at RAF Lossiemouth until March 1994 as a two-seat instrument flying trainer for the Buccaneer Force. It was one of the last 4 Hunters to fly in RAF service before being acquired in 1996 by Delta Jets. The aircraft is now painted in gloss black and represents the two-seat T-7 aircraft that flew with the Treble 1 Squadron Black Arrows aerobatic team. The Folland Gnat was the RAF's advanced jet trainer for many years. It was also made famous as being the mount of the Red Arrows in their formative years. This is a T1 version, designed for training, but there was also a single-seat fighter version, although this never saw service with the RAF. Many Hunter pilots would have flown the Gnat as part of their training. Pilot at the show was Dave Room, Delta Jet's chief pilot. Kemble saw a welcome return to an old friend, Canadair C-33A Silver Star. Unfortunately, the weather was not very welcoming, with the appearance of a large thunderstorm. After taking off once and landing immediately, pilot Air Vice Marshal Cliff Spink waited for the storm to pass before taking off in a cloud of spray for his display. Notice the lightning strike in the distance. Owned by the Golden Apple Trust and operated by the Aircraft Restoration Company, the Silver Star has been repainted in its original Canadian Air Force scheme. This aircraft has been absent from the display circuit for many years, and Cliff Spink's display, in poor conditions, showed the crowds what they could expect in the coming season. This jet provost with a fiery paint scheme put on a great aerobatic display. Formerly painted grey with colourful spots, its aerobatic manoeuvres belied the fact that the JP is a low-powered vintage jet trainer. Next up was the fighting version of the JP, the Strike Master. This example, in the colours of the Botswana Defence Force, was flown by Tom Maloney. To finish the day's proceedings was a flypast of 4 Hawker Hunters. Ordinarily, this would be a spectacular sight in itself, but Delta Jets had much bigger plans for later in the year. Keep watching to see one of the most spectacular sights seen at an airshow in recent years. The first big military show of the year was held at Mildenhall. This year's show saw the 25th anniversary of Air Fate, christened Silver Wings. First up, and an amazing colour scheme for the F-16 from the Royal Netherlands Air Force. The F-16 is fly-by-wire, which enables it to perform manoeuvres like this. Although a design dating from the 1970s, the F-16 still manages to keep up with the modern generation of fighters. The B-52 is a design dating back to the 1940s that is due to stay in service for decades longer. This extremely reliable bombing platform can dispense its payload from both high and low levels. The bomber pilots featured in this program have not been identified for security purposes because of the ongoing conflict in Afghanistan at the time of making this program. The Buff, as it's known, is a firm favorite with its air crews.
I like the fact that the entire crew concept and how you got to work with guys that you're not looking at. My electronic warfare officer sits behind me facing backwards. I've got two guys downstairs doing the crew coordination to get the mission done. I played American football back in the States, and it's very similar, the teamwork, and it just makes flying a lot of fun. It really does. It's supposed to go till 2044, if you can believe that. It's supposed to outlive both the B-1 and the B-2. It'll be 84 years old, the last airframe. They're going to actually begin phasing it out in 2040, take 4 years, and so the last B-52 will be dropped off at Davis-Monthan in 2044, and it'll be anywhere from 83 to 84 years old.
Much higher tech than the B-52 is the B-1B Lancer.
The B-1 has seen action so far in both Operation Desert Fox in Iraq, and then also with the Operation Allied Force. We're going to display our high-speed capability. We're going to do a high-speed pass, 0.9 Mach at 500 feet. And then we're going to come back around for a slow-speed pass and show some of the slow-speed handling characteristics before we do our full-stop landing. The B-1 is near and dear to the hearts of its crew members because of its outstanding low-altitude, high-speed capabilities. It loves to go low, it loves to go fast. 0.9 Mach, 500 feet, we can actually hook up the terrain following system and fly that totally hands-off. The system itself is capable down to 200 feet. Normally we train at anywhere from 500 to 1,000 feet.
Another piece of American hardware on display at Mildenhall was the A-10 tank buster, known as the Warthog. Its fearsome Gatling gun on the front of the aircraft can dispense 4,200 milk bottle-sized rounds of ammunition. The base at Mildenhall is home to a diverse collection of units. This tactical demonstration showed off some of their capabilities. Staged by 352nd Special Operations Group, whose role is to support special forces in the field, the display features the MC-130 Combat Talon, refueling MH-53 Pave-Low helicopters. Troops from 321st Special Tactics Squadron drop from a helicopter, while the MH-53s circle ahead, providing cover. This demonstration is now especially relevant with the current situation in Afghanistan, where these forces may have been deployed. The motto of the 352nd is right forces, right place, right time, every time. Mildenhall is also the home for KC-135 Stratotankers. These fly refueling missions in support of fighters and other combat aircraft. The refueling boom on the back of the aircraft is flown by a boom operator into place on the receiving aircraft. In this case, an F-15 Eagle. The Swedish Air Force was showing off their next-generation fighter, the JAS-39 Gripen. This aircraft replaces the mighty Saab Viggen in Swedish Air Force service. The Gripen is a highly agile, multi-mode, multi-mission fighter with an advanced canard wing design.
I've flown Viggen in 11 years and I have almost 2,000 hours in the Viggen. But this is a whole new concept. I was flying the air-to-ground version of Viggen, and with this aircraft I can do all the three roles. I can do air-to-air, air-to-ground and air-to-recce on the same sortie. I just use my buttons in the cockpit, so I select the radar modes to be an air-to-ground aircraft or an air-to-air aircraft. And I have the weapon loads who creates me to do all the three parts in the same sortie. We thought about it when we started flying it, and we have been flown Viggen. We said it was like going from a bus to a Formula 1 or something. It's a really smooth aircraft to fly.
Years ago was 1976, and that was the bicentennial of the United States. On our Independence Day, we threw an open house here at Mildenhall. It wasn't just a flying display at that time. It was 3 hours of flying. We had about 60,000 people come, and we've grown to over 7 hours of flying, and today over 300,000 people here. I think Air Freight's greatest achievement is that it's our opportunity to throw open the gates and let the people of really Europe, but especially the UK and Eastern England, to come on and see what we do every day. It's our way of saying thank you for the support that we get all year long.
This aging C-141 Starlifter carried first-time visitors to Air Fate, the Golden Knights US Army Parachute Display Team. They were joined on their jump by members of the British Army Red Devils Parachute Display Team. Mildenhall saw the first UK display this year for the French Air Force aerobatic team, the Patrouille de France, flying 8 twin-engined Alpha Jet trainers. Their display is more than a match for the British and Italian national teams. Biggin Hill is one of the oldest air displays on the circuit and is usually a great success. However, tragic events at this year's show would have repercussions long after. On the first day of the show, the Venom from de Havilland Aviation landed wheels up. The pilot escaped unhurt, but much worse was to come. Towards the end of the first day's flying, the Vampire, flying in formation with the Sea Vixen, crashed with the loss of both Air Marshal Sir Ken Hare and Jonathan Kerr. After consultations with the aircrew's family, it was decided that the Sunday display would go ahead. But tragedy struck again when this P-63 King Cobra crashed mid-display, with the loss of its pilot, Guy Bancroft Wilson. Because of these events, we have limited our coverage of this year's show. Biggin Hill always has a good selection of warbirds, with this year being no exception. As well as Sally B, there was also a display by the Fighter Collection's B-25 Mitchell.
We try not to be too enthusiastic with it because it is a nearly 60-year-old airplane, and yes, for its size, its performance belies its size and weight. It's quite manoeuvrable. It's quite heavy to manoeuvre around, but its top speed 340 mile an hour, although we tend to keep it to 300 or below. Quite easy to fly and land. It's tricycle undercarriage, so there's no problems with the tail wheel. Makes a lot of noise, so it's a good display airplane. But the only problems with the airplane would be just losing an engine low down on takeoff and whatever, although the performance of this should be pretty good because in the war they flew it up to 35,000 pounds takeoff weights, and in fact in the noticed in one of the old wartime handbooks, they say if you lose an engine on takeoff, it says land straight ahead, you know, because that was the weights they flew it with bombs. They didn't think about single engine performance, but we fly this at somewhere around about 20,000 pound all at weight, and it should fly reasonably well on one engine. But that's the only thing on the training, is the single engine aspect of it. The rest of it is pretty good, although the only thing you have to remember in displays, it's got quite a lot of mass and if you're tonking along at 250, 300 miles an hour on a downward trajectory, it's quite a hefty airplane, so you have to level off quite a bit earlier than you'd normally think in a small airplane. It's got a lot of mass there, and you can carry up to 800 gallons of petrol in it, so it's got some weight behind it. But all in all, it's a very honest, very, very nice airplane.
Regular visitors to the show are the Breitling fighters, led by Biggin Hill stalwart Ray Hanna. Flying Spitfire, Corsair, P-40 Kitty Hawk and Mustang, the collection is sponsored by the watchmaker Breitling. Their display of close formation warbird flying is probably unmatched anywhere in the world. The Breitling fighters were joined by aircraft from the fighter collection to form a wonderful sounding flypast on the Saturday of the show. Now, take a stomach-churning trip with Will Curtis in the Gold Air Pit Special. This American-built lightweight aircraft really pushes the envelope of display flying. Just imagine the G-forces on Will's body in this routine. RAF Tornado GR1 is a loud and fast addition to any air show.
This is the pinnacle of your flying career, really, to display an aircraft. And we've both been flying the jet for 6 years now, and this really is kind of the top job for us, really.
So it gives you a new discipline, basically, to try out, you know, so it's quite good.
Now sit back and enjoy the Tornado display sequence from 3 mini-cams in the cockpit and with all the RT between the pilot and navigator.
Good fairness. 105, let's go. Cheers up. Flaps. This just must have been on me.
From a flying point of view, it's my slow roll. For an aircraft like this, which doesn't like to do slow rolls and it's not designed to do it, it's actually quite a challenging manoeuvre. The most exciting, I guess, is probably our arrival.
025's a data, Canadian break 340, 3 banana.
In case you're wondering, the word banana is used to get perfect 1-second spacings.
I've tried to change it a little bit from last year, just so it was my own individual display along with Al. And we changed 1 or 2 things. The arrival we do slightly differently. The guys were doing it from takeoff and we do it from arrival. The Tornado goes very fast at low level, makes a lot of noise, and I think that's what the crowd want to see.
That's 100 spot on. 340. 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana. Left, right. Track for the slow roll. It's looking good, Rich.
What I tend to do for Rich is give him the next event, the entry speed, and also just count down any heights from any manoeuvres that we do. So he doesn't need to look in. He's got me actually telling him what height we are, what speed we need to be at, and things like that.
500 level. 8 up rolling left exit. It's going to be 250. 250 the exit. Nice. Right to left, back to the inverted pass. 025. That's looking good, mate. Roll left to exit, make straight turn, round to 115. You're being tightened up. It's looking good on the spacing. Oh, manoeuvres a go. Very left onto 250. Ready to go. .250. Right to left, back for the 4 point. It's looking good, mate. 3. Nice. Left 305. Idle, left, right, configure. Air brakes are good. Back to 175 for the dirty barrel roll. Spacing's looking good, mate. 3 greens you got, 2 to level. Gears up. Wraps are good. There's the par. Round 1085. Space is looking good, mate. To go. Wings. 330. 2 loud and clear. 2 bananas.
Extras, listen out, we'll call you running about 2 minutes late.
1 banana, 2 banana. Slack right into the back. Back up now. Gonna have to pull. Wheels to come, 3 to go. 1. 500. 4. 3 on the rad out. 3. 120. Happy. Come up to do the red. Left, right, wherever have you got?
The RAF Museum at Cottesmore has a fantastic collection of aircraft on display, from V-bombers to World War II fighters. Pride of place goes to the Experimental Jets collection, the finest of its type in the world. It is also on the site of an active RAF station.
The main role of Royal Air Force Cottesmore is to train people for tomorrow's Royal Air Force. We provide a variety of training for a large number of trades, principally the aircraft technical trades, but also a diverse set of other trades such as photographers, physical training instructors, and a whole host of others.
The annual show at the airfield has broad appeal.
It's very much a family show at Cottesmore, rather than an enthusiast show as you would see at other places. This is a family event and lots of people enjoying themselves.
Because of the length of the runway at Cottesmore, many of the jets at the display are based at RAF Shoreham, about 20 miles from Cottesmore. One of the Shoreham-based aircraft was the RAF display Jaguar.
What I'll be doing today is a low-level aerobatic display in the Jaguar, which will take around 9 minutes. And during that time, I'll be putting the aircraft through its paces, anywhere from +8 to -2G, and everywhere from 120 knots up to 600 knots in a series of linked manoeuvres at low level. The majority of the manoeuvres are for display purposes only. However, what it does do is we do teach pilots how to fly aerobatics in the aircraft, because it relates to practicing aircraft handling towards the limit of how the aircraft performs.
Another aircraft flying out of Shoreham was the BBMF Lancaster, celebrating the 60th anniversary of the type. one of the most evocative aircraft on the display circuit, the Lancaster is usually seen flying with a Spitfire and Hurricane. PA-474 was built in mid-1945 and never saw combat, instead being used on photo reconnaissance duties. It joined the BBMF in 1973. New to the airshow circuit this year is de Havilland Sea Vixen Foxy Lady. Operated by Gwyn Jones and de Havilland Aviation, this naval Cold War warrior was a real handful for the pilots that had to land this beast on aircraft carriers. This example was built in 1964 and served with 899 Squadron until the early 1970s. The Sea Vixen was the last in the line of classic de Havilland fighters. The aircraft was flown at Cottesmore by Dan Griffith, a CAA test pilot. Another sporting display at Cottesmore was the French Air Force Mirage 2000.
What I'm trying to show the high maneuverability with this aircraft, the high speed, high Gs, and after that low speed. And I love all in this aircraft because it's a very nice aircraft. Like I prefer on this aircraft is the fly-by-wire control, because the safety flight is very, very nice, and I can do what I want with the stick, and the aircraft will do all his capabilities.
A typically Gallic display is how one member of the crowd put it. Capable of speeds of over Mach 2, the Mirage is agile and responsive, everything you need in a fighter aircraft. It also has two 30mm guns, something that's going to be missing from the next generation of fighters. The origins of the delta wing and no-tail flat design of the Mirage can be seen in one of the museum exhibits, the Fairy Delta. No, it's not an exclusive shot of a flying Wellington bomber, but just one of the large-scale models that flew before the main display at Cottesmore. These lovingly crafted models are immensely detailed and attracted a great deal of attention at the show. On static display at the show was the RAF's latest aircraft.
The Merlin you see behind me is a support helicopter, as we call it in the Royal Air Force. We work for the Joint Helicopter Command along with all the other UK's battlefield helicopters, and the Merlin will primarily be used as a tactical troop transport aircraft. It is a fourth generation aircraft, it's brand new, and it is well suited to that role. We're now into, with the British Armed Forces, an expeditionary era. We tend to deploy overseas frequently and at very short notice, and strategic deployment, tactical troop transport, flexibility and reliability are all key words when it comes to Merlin. It is hugely suited to all of these roles.
Back on the circuit this year was the Royal Navy Historic Flight Sea Fury. We spoke to Phil Shaw the week before about the aircraft.
The Fury really started life as a land plane design. It was the next progression from the Typhoon Tempest generation, and the Air Force didn't want the Fury as a land-based fighter. They were looking ahead to the jets, and quite rightly so too. The Fleet Air Arm was still interested in having a propeller-driven aircraft, and so its design got adapted from what we'd learned from things like the Corsair. So you've got a widely spaced undercarriage with really good technology for putting an aircraft hard onto a deck, and trying to cram as much power out of a piston engine into a smaller fighter as you could manage, plus fuel. Naval fighters need long legs, and so this thing had plenty of range, particularly with drop tanks. Yes, I think this must have been the ultimate piston engine challenge to put on an aircraft carrier. We had all sorts of problems with some aircraft like the Seafire, and I've talked to guys who flew this onto the deck, and it was challenging, it was difficult. You can see the landing attitude here, the nose stuffed up right up in the air, and although the visibility out of the cockpit is beautiful when it's flying, with the tail down, you can just see yards of heavy metal, frankly. So it was a curved approach, and although the undercarriage was very forgiving, the speed regime was very close to the stall, and if they got low, they pushed power on, they ended up with a thing called torque stall, where the aircraft just rolled over and hit the island or went into the sea. So they had their work cut out putting this thing on the deck, they certainly did. As an aeroplane to fly, it's a complete joy. You're sitting in the middle of it, you feel as though you put the thing on like a glove, and although I've got very, very few hours on it at the moment, I feel very comfortable in the cockpit. I don't mean by that I feel that I know everything about the aeroplane, far from it. I'm on a very steep learning curve, but it is a complete joy to fly, and that difficult visibility when you're approaching the deck transforms itself into something that actually makes the aircraft very easy to fly once you're up and running, because you've got a very good attitude definition with the cowling out in front of you. It's tremendously responsive in all planes, and it's got oodles of power.
The Army Air Corps Blue Eagles are certainly the only formation helicopter display team you'll see in the UK and possibly the world. Flying 4 Gazelles and a Lynx, their spectacular display demonstrates the skill of Army Air Corps pilots. Based at Middle Wallop, the Eagles consists of flying instructors who give up their spare time to fly with the team. The display is designed to give the spectators something to watch at both ends of the crowd line. One of the highlights is the backflip by the Lynx, a gravity-defying maneuver that always draws gasps from the crowd.
Backflip, as we do in the display team, is it's in the hover. There's no more than 5 knots of forward speed. You do not have any backwards or sideways movement. Once you've decided you're in the right position, and it's above 700 feet, you pull a little bit of power to get a rate of climb about 300 feet a minute, which is very unnoticeable from the ground. Once you've achieved that, pull the stick back to the groin, over you go, maintaining the power setting that you were in the hover. Touch a little bit of left pedal to keep it as straight as it goes over the top. Once you come out, look for the blue, look for the green, look for the blue again, level out and fly away.
This part of the display is the crossover brake by the Gazelles, made even more impressive by the separation between the rotor blades.
And one of the points I always make about formation flying in particular, fast jets, let's take the Red Arrows as an example, they fly very, very closely together, within maybe 10 feet, aircraft to aircraft. But I think the thing to remember about that is you have two fixed-wing aircraft and they touch wings doing a relatively similar speed at 10 feet. It's no major disaster. But if you consider that the rotor blades on our helicopters are turning at just below the speed of sound, if they were to touch, then it's goodbye to two helicopters, if not more, because they would also be caught in the wreckage. And it's rather frustrating in many ways, because when you look at a helicopter formation, all you see really is the fuselage. It's very difficult to see the rotor disc. So it always tends to look as if the helicopters are quite a long way apart, when in reality they're only one rotor's diameter apart, which is, believe me, very, very close indeed.
The public often get the chance to meet the team. Clearly, something both the public and the team enjoy.
Feedback's probably one of the most important things that we get, because we can display all day and think, yeah, look at us, we're great. But actually, the people who don't know you, who come along, and one of the greatest things, a guy comes up to you after the display, who you've never met, and says, great display, guys, fantastic, didn't know helicopters could do that. And that to me, that makes the day. That's why we're there. We're not there for our benefit.
Support comes from a team of engineers who accompany the team to displays to perform vital servicing and maintenance on the helicopters. This year, they also have the first female military display team pilot.
Certainly when I was a child, I went from airshow to airshow because my father was in Blue Eagles. He's been in Blue Eagles 3 times, so my father's really proud. I mean, he's really chuffed. Yeah, he certainly gave me a lot of advice, a lot of encouragement. It's been good. I love it. I think it's a brilliant job, and I would love to do it again. It's just such fantastic flying. You know, you're actually doing flying that you don't do in your normal day-to-day job, as a pilot. And to be able to throw the aircraft around and actually be given permission to do that is just fantastic. I'm actually the first female that's been in the Blue Eagles, and that's actually been in the helicopter display team, so I'm very proud of that fact. It's been excellent fun. I hope it continues, and a good bunch of guys that we're actually working with. Nothing's been difficult. I haven't come across any problems whatsoever. I get a lot of stick, but I give back as good as I get.
So take your seats and enjoy a flight with the Blue Eagles. The Shuttleworth collection at Old Warden hosts a number of shows during the season, including a number of sunset displays. The summer air show saw many of the collection's unique aircraft being wheeled out to fly and for static display. The atmosphere at Shuttleworth air shows is unique, almost like a garden party. But the pilots take the flying very seriously.
The policy of the Shuttleworth collection is that we believe that these aeroplanes should be shown in the air, which is obviously the correct environment from them. But with that in mind, we're very aware that they're one-off old aircraft, and we therefore fly them very gently, well within any of their limitations. And the aim really is just to allow people to see them flying.
A new addition this year is a remarkable replica of a Bristol M1C. Built by the Northern Aeroplane Workshops using the original plans, it's painted in the colours of 72 Squadron, operating in Mesopotamia during 1918. The M1C first entered service with the RFC in 1916 and was not used over the Western Front, instead being used in flying training stations. The collection's chief pilot, Andy Sefton, put the M1C through its paces in a fine display that also featured the legendary Sopwith triplane. Another new addition was the Southern Martlet. This aircraft was awarded Vintage Aeroplane of the Year by the Vintage Aircraft Club. A classic example of the oldest Miles design, the Martlet was restored by the engineers at the Shuttleworth collection. Six of these aircraft were originally built by Miles and were used for aerobatic displays and demonstrations. This aircraft was, for several years, the personal mount of F.G. Miles. After the war, it was acquired by Butlins holiday camps, who used it to give displays for holiday makers. Next is a fighter flypast, with the collection's Gloucester Gladiator, Spitfire and Sea Hurricane. This is followed by 2 of the 3 remaining airworthy Miles Magisters, accompanied by the collection's new de Havilland Chipmunk, painted in Royal Canadian Air Force colours. Another flying legend is the Percival Mewgull. Purchased in 1937 by Alex Henshaw, it was completely modified for air racing by Essex Aero. After winning the King's Cup in it, he then went on to break the record for the return flight from England to Cape Town in 1939. Over 12,000 miles in 39 hours and 23 minutes, a record which stands to this day.
Yeah, my name is Frank Chapman. I'm fortunate enough to be one of the Shuttleworth collection pilots. And the aircraft you see behind me is the Hawker Tomtit pre-war trainer that was developed by Hawkers for an Air Ministry competition for a trainer for the Royal Air Force in around about the early 1930s. The aircraft's powered by the Armstrong Siddeley Mongoose 5-cylinder radial engine. Plenty of power, slow revving engine, which makes the aeroplane really quite a delight to fly. This is the sole surviving Hawker Tomtit produced by Hawkers in that mid-war period. It's very pleasant to fly. It has ailerons on the lower span only, so it's a little bit slow in roll, but generally very easy as a tail dragger to fly. However, on the ground it doesn't have any brakes. It's directionally not ideal, so we have to use wing walkers when manoeuvring on the ground. Generally, when we display at Old Warden, most of the aircraft do not have radios, so we manage on light signals if required from the tower, or work based on timings. At a bigger show like Duxford, it becomes a little bit more complex, and therefore the brief is that much more involved to make sure we deconflict with other traffic.
Another famous Shuttleworth aircraft is this original Avro 504K, primarily used as a training aircraft in World War I and between the wars. It was 4 504s that made the first bombing attacks of World War I. Always popular with the crowds are the very early types. This 1910 Deperdusson is powered by an Anzani engine that powered the aircraft to speeds of 55 miles per hour, although today it is flown a lot gentler than that. Difficult to control in the air and on the ground, this is a real challenge for Andy Sefton to fly.
Looks like it's planning to run back up the runway.
Flying Legends 2001 was a perfect example of the vagaries of the British weather and why two-day shows are a good idea. On the Saturday, the weather was overcast, and by the end of the afternoon, rain curtailed the display. However, the Sunday stayed dry, and an almost full program was put on. The world's only airworthy Hawker Nimrod made its public debut at the show. The pilot was Charlie Brown.
Well, the Nimrod was the fleet fighter. It was a development from the Hawker Fury. It is basically a Hawker Fury, but with a hook on the back. I believe it was sold to the Fleet Air Arm as a completely new fighter. The Hawkers weren't daft. They took all the development money for a completely new fighter, and when they rolled it out, it looks rather like a Fury to me. Absolutely right, they used a lot of the Fury stuff.
The Nimrod is powered by a Rolls-Royce Kestrel engine, which was the forerunner of the mighty Merlin.
As you can see, it's got a little short, narrow undercarriage, quite long travel oleo legs. It's pleasant when you get it in the air. You really can see that it's almost exactly like the Hurricane to fly. So Hawkers, whatever their design philosophy was, it went straight into the Hurricane. It feels very much the same as a Hurricane, almost neutrally stable.
Stars of the show were undoubtedly the Grumman F-3F and G-32A biplanes, making their debut here in Europe. They had been shipped over from the Planes of Fame Museum in Chino, California.
The F-3F is, the really first of the Grumman aircraft ironworks. It started with this little sturdy fighter, and they went all the way through the F-7F you see down at the end of the line for World War II airplanes. And they saw limited service, but of course, in those times, evolution of aviation was changing daily. Airplanes had a very short service life because there was so many vast improvements being made. It's very, the Brits use the term agricultural. Things vibrate and it shakes, and on takeoff it accelerates well and climbs good. And for a biplane, a very high performance for a biplane. We're not running the engines at their full capacity. Just keeping in the spirit of making them last as long as they can. They're rated at 1,000 horsepower, and even using reduced power like we use, a few hundred meters, they're airborne.
After the two visitors had displayed, there was a flypast by all the naval World War II fighters from the Grumman Ironworks. F-3F, Wildcat, Avenger, Hellcat, Tigercat and Bearcat. Only at Flying Legends do you see formations like this in Europe. Flying Legends saw two B-17 Flying Fortresses in the same airspace, although sadly not in formation. Sally B was joined by French-based B-17 Pink Lady. Sally B is arguably the star resident at Duxford, and it flies in tribute to all the brave air crews who lost their lives flying bombing missions in World War II. The P-47 Thunderbolt was an ideal escort fighter for the bombers. Here, we can get a great view inside the cockpit with pilot Steve Privet, whose helmet cam gives you a pilot's eye view of the display.
About 2,000 feet, just overbanking now. Getting lined up on the runway, letting the speed build up. Looking for 300 knots to pull up for a loop. And I've got visual the B-17s, they're clear. So just running down the runway now, pulling up from about 500 feet. About 4G. Pulling over the top, looking for the horizon on the back side of the manoeuvre. Visual with the runway again. Got the line. Now I'm going to aim to the left of the motorway, to the east of the crowd. I'm going to pull up for a wing over to the right. Now I'm just manoeuvring the aeroplane to run back down the line. Conscious of the motorway, not getting too low over that. Just easing the aeroplane down, about 260 knots now. Along the crowd line, banking to the left. Speed in those turns gets bound to a minimum of 150 knots. Maintaining a max continuous power. It's a nice aeroplane, the Thunderbolt. It's quite heavy in pitch, so you think you're pulling 8G, but you're only pulling 4. But it rolls very nicely. Got the other two aeroplanes visual there, out on the other end of the line. So probably 100 feet here, 260, 270 knots. I'm just going to do a bend to the left, aiming towards the end of the crowd line. All the time looking at my watch. I've got a set time to start and a set time to finish, so conscious of what time I need to be off the stage. So again, just descending over the motorway. Running down it. This is where I just do a little wing drop. There we go. Pulling up for an aileron roll. That's when I leave the show.
Flying Legends 2001 also saw appearances by legendary fighter aces. Bud Anderson, who still flies Mustangs today at the age of 79, flew over 100 missions in World War II and has 17 successes to his credit. He got the chance to sit in a Mustang painted in the colours of his old aircraft. Earlier in the week, he even got to fly Old Crow over his old airbase.
You can imagine what my feelings are. You know, to be able to come back here to England and fly a Mustang, not just a Mustang, but a Mustang painted like I had flew in World War II. then to be able to take it myself, fly to East Anglia, find the old base down there, which has been returned to agriculture. We could still see the outline of the runways, and I could still, where our squadron was is now a weekend caravan park. To be able to see that from the flight and then have John Dibbs take pictures of me with the old crow and that in the background is pretty nostalgic. I think you can imagine how I feel about that.
We moved into the 48th fighter.
Other aces at the show included Lee Archer from the legendary Tuskegee Airmen and Bob Goebbels with 11 combat successes over Italy.
We had to be very young to do this kind of thing because you'd go out 2 hours and you'd fight for 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever. French was sweat, nervous, keyed up, a little nauseated, and you had to fly back 2 hours, you know. and then the next day be ready to go again. It was a young man's game.
Duxford was home to the first operational Spitfires from 19 Squadron, and today it's still the best place in the world to see Spitfires flying. The next display sees a formation of various types. We flew with John Romaine.
We're running in at 45 degrees to the airfield. There's a familiar farm going underneath, and you can just see the airfield coming in now. Speed now is getting towards 300 miles an hour as we pull up into the first of the loops. Up and up, sky disappearing as we go over the top. There's the other two aircraft just accelerating down the hill there. Very difficult for me to keep up with them at this stage. Quite smooth at this point, obviously. Prop wash is not an issue. There we go, there's the runway again. See the shadow going there. Here's the pitch up. And there's the roll. Horizon going through. You can just see the aircraft ahead rolling as well. And there we are into the Echelon 3. Now the next pass is going to be what we call a missing man. The last alignment going in there. To get us running down the centre line of the display. And height diminishing now as we come across one of the roads and the railway lines. Height coming down. And only a matter of probably 400 yards from the airfield. Motorway will go underneath us any minute. One road, there's the motorway. Now we're closing, there's the runway. Next thing you'll see is Charlie pick up and disappear, and we're now left with the two and the missing man gap in the middle. Quick check where Charlie's gone. There goes Nicky to the left. Quick check on Nicky, and there's the brake for me to the left.
Flying Legends 2001 ended with the traditional mass balbo of classic piston-engined aircraft. This formation made a sound that couldn't fail to stir the soul. For many people, the event of the year was Delta Jet's celebration of 50 years of the Hunter. 15 Hunters gathered at Kemble Airfield for an event that would culminate in an historic flypast by all of them. Before his display, Jonathan Whaley did his usual walk-round inspection of the aircraft.
Don't want anything dropping off in the middle of that formation. Ruin somebody's day. Just land, didn't need the gloves on for this bit. It's still hot. But you've got to check it actually moves, because it actually expands, and when it gets hot it actually expands by an inch and comes back about an inch and a half. So just check that. You can move it, but it is still hot. These flaps underneath here, spring-loaded, the same on the top. When the engine can't get enough air actually in through here, it actually sucks those open and actually get more air inside. Sabrina's, named after the famous lady for her endowment. That's it, go fly.
This aircraft is an F-58A variant owned by Heritage Aviation Developments and is based here at Kemble with Delta Jets. Built in 1956, the aircraft saw service in Germany with No. 3 Fighter Squadron, before being sent to No. 229 Operational Conversion Unit at Chivenna. In 1972, the aircraft was delivered to the Swiss Air Force, where it spent its service life as a target tug. To the airshow included the Red Arrows, who have an historic link to Kemble Airfield.
The Red Arrows have a great history here with Kemble. I mean, in this very hangar that we're standing in was their base for 13 years, and they were here as part of the Central Flying School in the 60s and continued here right the way up through 1983. I think they left the airfield. So I mean, this place is steeped in tradition with the Red Arrows, and you can't really have an air show at Kemble without the Red Arrows.
Because of the good weather, the Red Arrows were able to perform their full display sequence. Always impressive, the Red Arrows act as ambassadors for the RAF wherever they display in the world. The 2001 Red Arrows are led by Wing Commander Andy Offer. Their display includes close formations with maneuvers such as the Big Vixen Roll, Flanker Bend, and the Swan Loop. The Reds fly the BAE Hawk, their replacement for the Gnat, the RAF's modern advanced jet trainer. Once the main formation part of the display is over, the team split into two formations, Enid and Jippo. One of the more romantic parts of the display is appreciated by one of the Swiss pilots. The synchro pair perform dramatic opposition passes that draw gasps of breath from the crowd. A first-time visitor to the UK was Swiss hunter F-58 Papyrus. The aircraft markings were particularly unique.
Yeah, these markings actually come from our squadron, Squadron 15. The squadron sign of the 15 is a white Papyrus aircraft, and we just tried to put the squadron sign onto the aircraft in a good way.
Hunter served with the Swiss Air Force for almost 37 years and was used as the mount for the Patrie de Suisse display team. In fact, many of the Hunters on the display circuit used to belong to the Patrie. The Hunter is powered by a single Rolls-Royce Avon engine, giving a maximum speed of around 710 miles per hour. The Hunter can operate at up to 51,000 feet. Armaments on the single-seat versions included 4 30mm Aden cannon, 2 5,000-pound bombs, 2 1,000-pound bombs, as well as a rocket-firing capability. Export versions could also carry other stores, such as cluster bombs and Sidewinder missiles. Over 2,000 Hunter airframes were built, making it Britain's most successful post-war fighter.
The aircraft I'm flying today is replicating the original Hunter that made the first flight on the 20th of July in 1951. And it's been painted exactly the same colour to replicate that flight. And we took it to Boscombe Down, where the first flight originally took place. And on the 20th of July, I was privileged to be able to take it into the air in front of an audience, including Neville Duke, the very first test pilot.
But the crowd had come to see this sight. 15 Hunters taxiing for takeoff on Kemble's runway. With 15 aircraft flying together and no rehearsal, how difficult is formation flying?
Well, the first thing is you never look where you're going. The only thing you must do is look at the manual formatting on. It's a bit like if you imagine driving down a dual carriageway and looking at the car that's driving on your right and only look at the car that's driving on your right, not what's in front of you. What we do is rely on the leader for the clearance to keep us in clear airspace, and we look at the other aeroplane, take some formation reference points so that we know we're the right distance out, and it will be symmetrical. the formation will be symmetrical, and we fly looking purely, let's say, to the right, and the leader does the flying for the whole 16.
So the finale approached. 15 hunters forming up over the Bristol Channel, just 4 minutes from thrilling the crowds at Kemble.
Kemble, 4 minutes.
4 minutes, roger.
Silver, join. Take him up. Holding down. Thank you, strike your whip. Looking good, just one on the far right now coming. The 2 jets far left and far right, tucking just a tiny bit. That's it, good there, hold it there, that's it, you got it. 2 minutes.
Covered.
C'est génial, c'est fantastique. C'est superbe.
Okay, Hunter's looking good, strike master leaving you now, John, next to your glory. Get on the ground. 1 minute. Okay. Five miles, no more change.
And then, there it was. 15 hunters in formation over Kemble. There was no air show at Middle Wallop this year, as the event is biannual, but there was an evening show called Music in the Air. This involved displays flown to music played by a large orchestra, certainly something different. Visitors were rewarded with a typical summer's evening and skies that changed as much as the aircraft that flew in them. The finale was a menacing sight of 4 Apache gunships flying in the darkened skies over Middle Wallop. Formidable attack helicopters in their natural environment. Not all air shows take place at airfields, of course. There are a number of shows in the UK that take place on the coast. The largest of these is the display at Sunderland. The show is free and draws hundreds of thousands of people over the weekend. The weather was perfect for a day at the beach, and the crowds enjoyed a varied display over the 2 days. A striking and unusual sight was the F-117 Nighthawk, not usually seen at non-military displays. Although it's known as the stealth fighter, the 1,270 missions they flew in the Gulf War were all bombing missions. The F-117 first flew over 20 years ago, but today the shape still looks like something from science fiction. The Nighthawk's pilot is Squadron Leader Link Taylor, an RAF pilot on exchange duties with the USAF. This is a formation more usually seen with the flight's Lancaster, the Dakota becoming a slightly rarer performer these days. Bringing the show to the crowd was the Royal Marines with their Sea King helicopter, at first displaying, then dropping Marines onto the beach. An aircraft that spends a lot of its time over water is the RAF's Nimrod. This aircraft from 42 Squadron at Kinloss normally carries a crew of 13 people and is used for anti-submarine warfare and search and rescue. The MR2 Nimrod is to be replaced by an updated Nimrod MR4A in 2004. But until then, we can still enjoy the sight of such a large aircraft being thrown around the skies. One day, they'll actually roll it and surprise everyone. If you've been to an airshow in the UK this year, chances are you've seen the RAF Falcons in action. Their freefall and non-contact canopy stack displays have thrilled crowds at airshows and special events across the summer. The team are all parachute jump instructors based at No. 1 Parachute Training School at Bryce Norton. 1 PTS, as it's known, trains parachutists from all 3 services. Basic training takes place in the hangar with a number of jumps to follow. The basic parachute course lasts 4 weeks for regular soldiers, and in this time they'll complete 8 jumps. The motto of the parachute training school is "Knowledge dispels fear," and this is amply demonstrated by the RAF Falcons in action. Taking the Falcons drop at Eastbourne Air Show as an example, we run you through the procedures involved in a display. About 2 hours before the drop, detailed briefings will take place amongst the team and with the aircrew in the C-130. The Falcons have the option of 3 shows, depending on the weather. The type of show will not be decided until the team leader and aircraft captain have a chance to survey the weather and the drop zone. About 2 hours before the drop is meant to take place, the drop zone team will arrive at the location. The drop zone safety officer calculates variables such as wind direction using a surveyor's theodolite to track a balloon up to 3,000 feet. Once all the conditions are taken into account, the drop instructions are compiled and passed to the team in the air via radio.
We've been here from surface up to about 3,000 feet.
2 minutes prior to display, a number of flares are lit to give the Falcons visual location information.
I'll ensure that all the preparation for displays is made from a practical point of view, that the men are ready for the display, they know about the type of arena that we're going into. I will also then make sure that the crew are briefed correctly. I will then spot the aircraft, ensure that the captain is flying in the correct area over the correct DZ, call the lights, the red and the green light, and I will always be the first out of the aircraft, which means I'll be at the bottom of the stack in a position to lead the rest of the men into any arena that we get called to go into.
They would then specialise and they would go on to one of the specialities of parachuting. They become parachute jump instructors. They spend about 5 years as a parachute jump instructor training all airborne forces, and then the very best of these are chosen to represent the Royal Air Force, Flight Sergeant Chris Henry. He has over 3,500. They like applause, don't they? They like cheers. But as they come in, led by Flight Sergeant Chris Henry, I'd like to give them a wonderful welcome here in Eastbourne. So Chris Henry is now lowered.
After all that effort, you'd think a well-earned rest would be in order. But most weekends, they go and do the whole thing again, sometimes performing 2 or 3 displays in a day.
I think we're very successful by virtue of the fact that we have something up our sleeve that many other display teams don't. That is, once we have completed our display, we are able to meet the public, chat to them about how we've done on the display and also about the RAF in general.
You've seen so far this match. Is it good on you?
We do speak about other display acts, and they often compliment the fact that it's so nice to speak to the people that actually perform the display.
The RAF Falcons, literally flying the flag for the RAF. The Royal International Air Tattoo is the world's biggest military air show, with more than 350 visiting aircraft from 30 different nations. 180,000 people visited the 30th anniversary show. The crowd got a brief sight of the B-2 Spirit bomber, escorted by 2 F-15s. The B-2 flew from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri and didn't even land before heading home, a 20-hour round trip. F-15 Eagle pilot Major Dan Blue talks us through his display.
Good 7 to 8 G pull right there. Stand it straight up on the tails. As you looking back, there's about 3,000 feet. Roll left to turn right, a little air show thing there. And now coming back in for the high G turn. I'll bring this pass in about 400 to 430 miles an hour. And try to demonstrate the high G turn capability of the Eagle. Basically a nice tight turn, the type of turn you'd use against a surface-to-air missile if it was shot at you in combat, or if a fighter rolled into your 6, you'd lay a brake turn on them to try to deny a missile weapons employment zone. And max performance turn like right here, that's about 9 Gs. And that hurts, pushes you way down into the seat, and sweat pouring down into your eyes. Now just looking back here, trying to pick up the show line. Backing off to about 6 to 7 Gs here towards the end as the airspeed runs off, and then as I roll out, pull it right back up into the vertical climb. A little showmanship here, just a little roll inverted, push negative. You can see me push up against the top of the canopy there. Split us back down here. Showcase some of the Eagle's climb capability. You know, back in 1972, the F-15 set a time to climb record by soaring from the surface to 12 miles in just under a minute. And just kind of give you a crowd a first-hand view of that record-setting power right here by doing that vertical climb. Doing it at about 450 miles an hour. Full afterburner and then a 9G pull into the vertical. That spices up a bit here, full of stick deflection, aileron roll. And you can see RAF Cottesmore kind of fading behind me there. Concentrating on the flight instruments displayed in the heads-up display there. The inner ear is kind of going a little crazy there. And roll out about 15,000 feet right there, about 3 miles up or so in that short time.
Another highlight was a display by the Italian national team, the Frecce Tricolori, which means 3 coloured arrows. Flying 10 Aeromacchi MB339 trainers, the team always wow the crowds. Although their aircraft aren't swept-wing like most modern trainers, this apparently helps them keep in even closer formation. The team split for some dramatic passes, while the solo aircraft performs its aerobatic display. A classic Cold War fighter at the show is the MiG-21 Lancer. This is an updated version of an aircraft which first flew in the 1950s and is still in service with the Romanian Air Force, who were visiting RIAT for the first time. Another 50s veteran is the F-4 Phantom, still in service with the Luftwaffe and formerly in service with the RAF. Many pilots have fond memories of flying the type. However, the ultimate in close formation flying was demonstrated by two Jaguars from the French Air Force. These two aircraft stuck together like glue, as this in-cockpit view shows. All displays at RIAT are closely monitored for safety and strict rules have to be obeyed. After a perfect display on the Saturday, this MiG-29 from the Luftwaffe pulled out of a dive too low and was immediately red-carded by air traffic control.
MiG-1 from the FCC, you are to land. Is anyone giving me a reason for this, please? We'll find out on the ground. We've just been told to instruct you to land.
The MiG-29 from the Hungarian Air Force had better luck and put on an impressive display. The Hungarian Air Force inherited these MiG-29s from the Soviets. This massive fighter doesn't utilize fly-by-wire technology, but is still incredibly maneuverable. You would think that a Festival of the Sea would not be of interest to a program about air shows, but there was a strong aerial element to the show. IFOS, as it was known, took place at Portsmouth's historic naval dockyard. One of the features of the show was a tri-service demonstration featuring a mock rescue of hostages from the hands of terrorists. First of all, a Nimrod flies over, gathering reconnaissance, followed by a Tornado and a Harrier. Then a Royal Navy Merlin arrives for further reconnaissance. As the mighty Chinook flies overhead, gunfire is heard. A Lynx flies in and drops soldiers into the thick of the battle. While the Chinook keeps a watchful eye above, a Sea King flies in to rescue the hostages. This display was a great idea, and certainly something to be expanded on for next year. September saw the 12th annual Battle of Britain Air Show at Shoreham on the south coast. Organised by RAFA, with all the profits going to charity, the show is a popular event in West Sussex. First up is a unit of First World War soldiers setting the scene for a show by the World War I display team. SE-5A fighters and a Sopwith triplane take off on dawn patrol, whilst the Black Baron sneaks in behind them. The nurse wonders whether the boys will be coming back. The Sopwith triplane was taken as the model for the German Fokker DR-1. This replica shows just how manageable this three-winged fighter was. Soldiers firing from the ground actually managed to shoot down aircraft in the Great War. These onboard shots give you an idea of the view from the cockpit. The SE-5A uses its superior turn radius to get in behind the DR-1 and scores a direct hit. With smoke billowing out, the Fokker finds the nearest airfield on which to land. Success for the Allies. The RAF's Harrier GR7, seen here flying over the south coast, is always popular at displays. The display at Shoreham was a roll demonstration, rather than a full air display.
The full display is flown from the ACU at Wittering, but the frontline squadrons, which is one of the ones I'm on, also have the opportunity to put on a roll demonstration. So it's more of a limited display to just show what the aircraft does and what we do in day-to-day flying on the squadron. So there isn't anything really that I do that's vastly different, apart from the hovering at the end, which is not something that we do day-to-day. Although we do come back and vertically land, we don't come in and do the sort of more detailed VSTOL work that you see me doing in the display. It's the longest conversion course that we have in the Air Force for any fast jet. The initial part is probably about 3 months long, which is just purely learning how to land and take off. There are so many different ways to do that, with different nozzle angles, different power settings, that it is much more involved. So it is a bit more tricky than the majority of aircraft fly, but the quality of the people coming through is very good. I was actually on the ACU for 3 years teaching, and whilst it's hair-raising at times in the early stages, it's very rewarding when you see what can be produced. With the nozzles pointing back, it's like any other aircraft, so any other fast jet. We can't go as fast as the Tornado or the Jaguar, but the versatility that you have with being able to move the nozzles down and then land either on short strips or vertically means that we can deploy to frontline areas of the battlefield. We can work off aircraft carriers as well. So the versatility of being able to do that gives the Harrier a huge capability, and it makes it a lot more fun to fly than conventional aircraft. The GR9 is being produced at the moment, which is an updated version of the GR7, so you won't see many physical differences, but it'll have a lot more computing power and various other software additions. And I believe the GR9 is going to be in service till about 2015, give or take, at the moment. And at the moment they're selecting whatever's going to take over, which is the Joint Strike Fighter, the JSF. And there's a competition going on in the States at the moment as to which way we're going to go with those. But there's a possibility that one of those will also be along the lines of a Harrier with short field, straight vertical landing capability to give you the flexibility that the Harrier has proved over the years.
Give the wave again.
Lorna and Rachel are twins who've been wing walking for the Utterly Butterly team this season. This is one act that's always a crowd pleaser. Two girls risking life and limb on the wings of two Boeing Stearmans. It's actually very safe, but there aren't many people who'd try it. The airspace over Shoreham is controlled, as there is commercial traffic flying above it. These Danish F-16s, one of which flew at the show, requested clearance up to 30,000 feet for its display and was awaiting permission. The F-16 is a classic and durable fly-by-wire aircraft that has sold to air forces worldwide.
I would say it's one of the smoothest aircraft to fly. It's one of the most comfortable aircraft, and it's also actually it's very pilot friendly. I would say it's a very agile aircraft, and I think it's one of the most sold aircrafts in the world now. Everybody uses them, and I know why. It's a good aircraft.
At the moment, we are still awaiting your clearance for the climb to flight level. At the moment, we only have flight level 240 available, but that will be available to be consulted.
Copy that, holding 5 miles south, 240 will also do.
Okay, I do understand.
It can fly at speeds of Mach 2 and has a service ceiling of 50,000 feet. Its turn rate is incredible, as you can see here, with the moisture literally being squeezed out of the air and trailing off the wings. The F-16 finally gets clearance to go to 24,000 feet and is gone. The terminal at Shoreham was once used in the television series Poirot. It's not difficult to see why.
It's a Grade 2 listed building. It was built in 1935, 1936 time. Stavers H. Tiltman was the architect, who was a very famous architect in the local area, and he helped design and develop a lot of other terminal buildings like Liverpool, Rochester, and there was also one down at Ramsgate. There was a similar building down there. You needed a terminal building to provide, comfort for the passengers of the day. Aircraft was no bigger than perhaps sort of 15, 20 seats sort of thing. The sort of Dove, Dakota type situation like that. And that's the sort of aircraft used to operate at that time, but of course we've now we would have outgrown it if we haven't sort of stayed almost as we are. So we are looking at actually expanding the terminal building by building a new building alongside it, not affecting its stature as a Grade 2 listed building.
World War II fighters don't come any more classic than this, the P-51D Mustang. This is an unusual formation, the P-51 and a Messerschmitt 108.
Nice, light aeroplane, really fun to fly, turns very tightly, and it's just enjoyable. Yeah, excellent. It's got some interesting devices on the wing, which has got slats on the front of the wing, which was very novel for the time. So that gives it a very good sort of turning capability as it re-energizes the airflow over the top of the wing.
It hadn't flown for 5 years, so it was we scraped out about half a ton of Texas dust, I think, that had come out of it. But the climate out there is very kind, and it'd been out there since the 70s, so really it's just looking over everything, checking everything, just checking everything was intact. Best of both worlds. We've got a little warbird for things like this where people want guys for the Mustangs and the Spitfires to take shots at, and when we're not, we've got a 4-seater that's capable of doing 180 miles an hour, will carry 4 people. We've got a little touring aircraft, so it really is the best of both worlds. The only thing you could fault it on is it's just a little bit noisy.
Well, it was actually in quite good condition, but we wanted to get, obviously, an authentic scheme, so we didn't have to put registration letters on the side of it. And once we started thinking about repainting it, we just got more involved with taking the bits out and just tidying up the interior, and just took more and more and more of it apart. We were working on it over winter. The aeroplane was in the barn, it was in the dry. It was a good opportunity to do that.
The 108 is actually a license-built version by the French company Nord. It is painted in Africa Corps colours and often doubles for 109s at air shows. The 108 was actually used for communications and personal transport, but it certainly has a common heritage with the 109. The undercarriage on the 108 is hand-cranked, so special dispensation has been given by the CAA for a second person to be in the cockpit during displays. This is a magnificent sight, the Swordfish from the Royal Navy Historic Flight, in the air, over the sea. This was the last biplane in British military service and proved itself to be a legend at Toronto and in the search for the Bismarck. Maximum speed was around 100 miles an hour and armament varied. This aircraft is fitted with a massive torpedo. The Swordfish actually saw service in a number of theatres and flew from airfields as well as carriers. The Imperial War Museum at Duxford is a mecca for aviation enthusiasts. Its collection of static displays and flying aircraft attract hundreds of thousands of visitors all year round. This year, the museum has a new airfield manager, Stephen White, who explained the theme behind the September air show.
Well, I wanted to show that despite the sort of current trend to jointery in the services, to the three services working together, there was nothing new in that, and they've been doing it for several years. And so by following the story of a couple of squadrons, 20 Squadron, RAF, who'd flown for the Army for most of their history, and 651, the oldest Army squadron, who were, to start off with, certainly half RAF, half Army, that certainly the RAF and the Army had been flying together in support of each other for several years. And by showing that history and some of the modern stuff as well, we thought we could tell a good story.
An aircraft that 20 Squadron flew was the Bristol fighter. This Shuttleworth collection aircraft demonstrated just how advanced it was in its time.
The engine itself is quite a powerful engine. It's a 275 horsepower engine, so the aeroplane's got quite a lot of power. And the aeroplane is fairly manoeuvrable. The main difference between this and a modern aeroplane is that it would be more difficult to sight this aeroplane accurately with a gun, because in terms of directional stability, it's not as stable as a more modern aircraft.
A resident among the large private collections at Duxford is this two-seater Spitfire, flown by Carol and Grace.
This is very much a family aircraft. It was my late husband Nick Grace who rebuilt it from 1979 to 85. And what's nice is its history and the fact that we did it as a family, and it was all basically an original aircraft. It actually did over 176 operational sorties during the war, 200 combat hours. It was accredited with shooting down the first enemy aircraft on D-Day, and did a lot of ground attack stuff.
The show featured 4 Spitfires and 4 Hurricanes.
Flying a Hawker Hurricane, it's a Mark 12B. It was built under licence in Canada in 1942. It never actually came back to take part in the war effort in Europe. It was used in coastal defence with the Canadian Air Force during the war. It's painted in 78 Squadron night fighter colour scheme, the mount of Squadron Leader Ian Glebe.
Although UK airshow crowds are used to seeing Spitfire formations in the air, 4 Hurricanes was a very unusual sight. The aircraft being provided by the Shuttleworth Collection, the Fighter Collection, Hawker Restorations and the Real Aeroplane Company. Seeing so many Battle of Britain types in the sky was very emotive, especially as the aircraft were demonstrating actual World War II combat formations. Another unusual sight was two T-28 Fennecs operated by ARC. We joined John Romaine for a trip inside one of the aircraft. There was also a celebration of Sidney Cam's designs.
Sidney Cam was given the task as a junior designer of creating a small two-seat light aircraft for the 1924 LIM trials. So this was Sidney Cam's first design for Hawker aircraft. The reason for the airplane being here today is that there is a small commemoration of Sidney Cam's designs. We're flying both his earliest designs with the Cygnet right up to his last design, which was the Harrier. So the idea today is to fly the aeroplane in opposition with a Hawker Hunter, which was probably his most famous design. So it will be his slowest and probably his fastest together in the air at the same time.
Get ready with your cameras. It's the Cygnet on the right, a Hunter from the left, cross over the builders for top, and here we go.
From 651 Squadron's first aircraft, the Oster, to its latest, the Westland WAH-64 Apache attack helicopter.
It's an awesome improvement in military capability, in reality. It is a tremendous information gathering system with this fire control radar in its own right, as well as being capable of prosecuting whichever design of military operations you want. We've got a self-deployment capability when we put auxiliary tanks on, and we've got a 1,000 nautical mile range, which is most unusual for anything like that.
This was the first display by the Apache outside of Middle Wallop, and it gave the public just a small glimpse of the capabilities of the aircraft. Apache is an awesome fighting machine. Its targeting and weapon systems are state-of-the-art.
Sort of things I'm going to do is try and show some of the capability both in the air and on the ground. The display starts with a high-speed fly past, and then basically pull up and do a lot of upper air manoeuvres, some crowd centre, crowd left, crowd right, and a couple in crowd depth. Come back to the hover, and then I'll do some sideways and backwards, which again I think always shocks people, is how fast the aeroplane can go sideways, how fast it can go backwards. And then I actually land on the runway, and I'll do some ground handling just to show people the capability of the aircraft, and I'll do some backwards, forwards, some dead turns, i.e., as I said, turning on the spot with no forward motion.
The end of the display featured a unique formation of a Harrier and two Apaches. This represents the way the attack helicopter may be used in close cooperation with all three services. After the firepower of the Apache came the Army Air Corps Historic Flight. This de Havilland Beaver was in formation with the Chipmunk and Oster. Then came the finale. All of the aircraft that 651 Squadron have ever flown. Oster, Scout, Sioux, Gazelle, Lynx and Apache. A unique formation to end a unique show. The highlights of 2001 will be overshadowed by the multiple tragedies that occurred earlier in the year, the repercussions of which will be felt by the aircraft operators in the coming seasons. We hope that they manage to overcome any problems, to provide us with exciting and safe display flying for many years to come. Our final thoughts must be with the families of the aircrew who were lost this year. Their dedication and passion for display flying gave enjoyment to millions of people, and their loss is felt by all of us.